Ever notice how ads always pop up at the worst moments? When the killer's identity is about to be revealed. During that perfect meditation flow. On Amazon Music, we believe in keeping you in the moment. That's why we've got millions of ad-free podcast episodes, so you can stay completely immersed in every story, every reveal, every breath. Download the Amazon Music app and start listening to your favorite podcasts ad-free, included with Prime.
Hey listeners, this is Peter and welcome back to the History Shorts. Today's episode is brought to you by the Podcast Republic, your ultimate listening app. Discover and subscribe to thousands of podcasts from around the world. Download Podcast Republic today, available on Google Play and the Apple App Store. A quick word from our sponsors. Today on History Shorts. For decades after the Second World War, historians barely bothered with Eva Braun. For decades after the Second World War, historians barely bothered with Eva Braun. She was dismissed as a footnote, a naive young woman who happened to be in the wrong orbit. Shallow, apolitical, obsessed with clothes and films and her own appearance. Someone who knew nothing, understood nothing, and contributed nothing to the history unfolding around her. Albert Speer, Hitler's architect and one of the most self-serving members of his inner circle, described her as existing outside politics entirely, a woman that Hitler kept deliberately isolated from the machinery of the Reich. For a long time, that verdict stuck. Today, we'll prove why it was wrong. Today's History Brief will cover some more recent history news. A quick word from our sponsors.
Hey guys, have you heard of Goldbelly? It's this amazing site where they ship the most iconic, famous foods from restaurants across the country, anywhere, nationwide. I've never found a more perfect gift than food. Goldbelly ships Chicago deep dish pizza, New York bagels, Maine lobster rolls, and even Ina Garden's famous cakes. So, if you're looking for a gift for the food lover in your life, head to goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT. That's goldbelly.com, promo code GIFT.
This day in history. On March 24th, 1989, the oil tanker Exxon Valdez ran aground in Alaska's Prince William Sound, spilling millions of gallons of crude oil into the pristine waters. The disaster became one of the worst environmental catastrophes in U.S. history and reshaped regulations governing oil transport. On March 24, 1999, NATO began airstrikes against Serbia during the Kosovo War, marking the alliance's first major military campaign without explicit United Nations approval. Story of the day. Eva Braun was born in Munich in 1912, the daughter of a schoolteacher. She was 17 years old when she first met Adolf Hitler in the autumn of 1929, working as an assistant in the photography studio of Heinrich Hoffmann, Hitler's personal photographer and one of his earliest associates. Hitler was 40 at the time. The age gap was not incidental. It shaped the entire dynamic of a relationship that would last in one form or another for the rest of both their lives. The early years were not easy ones for Braun. Hitler was consumed by politics, by the movement, by the performance of power. He was rarely available, rarely attentive, and by most accounts, treated her with a combination of genuine affection and chronic neglect. In 1932, and then again in 1935, Braun attempted suicide. The second attempt serious enough that it apparently prompted Hitler to make more permanent arrangements for her. She was given a house, an allowance, a defined, if still secret, place in his life. What she was not given, however, was public recognition. For the entire duration of the Third Reich, Eva Braun's existence was concealed from the German public. Hitler's image managers had cultivated a deliberate mythology around him. The solidary leader, married to Germany only, sacrificing personal happiness for the nation. A mistress, let alone a long term companion, did not fit that mythology. Braun was kept at Hitler's mountain retreat in Bavaria, away from Berlin and away from public life, away from the historical record as it was being written in real time. And so the question historians eventually had to confront was this: what did she actually know? The old answer, that she was deliberately kept ignorant, a decorative presence just sealed off from the horrors of the regime, has not survived serious scrutiny. Eva Braun lived for years at the Alpine compound that served as Hitler's second seat of government. Senior Nazi officials passed through constantly. Himmler, Bormann, Speer, Ribbentrop, military briefings were all conducted there with these men. Strategic decisions were made there. The Holocaust was not a secret at the levels of this Nazi hierarchy. The extermination of European Jews was, by the late 1940s, known to anyone with meaningful proximity to the regime's leadership. Braun had that proximity for over a decade. The historian Heike Goetzmaker, whose 2010 biography of Braun remains the most rigorous scholarly treatment of her life, argued precisely this: that the portrait of Braun as an apolitical innocent was largely a construction, one that served the post war narratives of those around her, and one that Braun herself had cultivated during her lifetime. She was not a policymaker, don't get me wrong. She held no official position, but she was present, she was attentive, and she was not stupid. The idea that she floated through years at the center of the Nazi leadership without any awareness of what that very leadership was doing requires a level of willful ignorance that the evidence just does not support. What Brown appears to have chosen, and this is the more uncomfortable conclusion, was not ignorance, but simply silence. A private sphere carefully maintained around a relationship she valued above everything else, including moral reckoning. Her home movies are one of the stranger artifacts of the Nazi era. Brown was an enthusiastic amateur filmmaker, and the footage that she shot at her alpine retreat, color films of picnics, dogs, dinner parties, alpine walks, presents a vision of domestic tranquility so aggressively ordinary that it borders on the surreal. Hitler is laughing, children are playing, women in summer dresses on a terrace with mountain views. These films were not propaganda in any formal sense. They were not even made for public consumption. They were the home movies of a private world of a madman. And that is precisely what makes them so unsettling. The gap between what is visible in the frame and what was happening just beyond it. The same man laughing at a picnic in 1943 was simultaneously overseeing the machinery of the Holocaust at its most industrially murderous peak. Brown's films don't explain that gap, but they illustrate it with a clarity that no written document quite matches. They are the visual record of what historian Hannah Arendt might have recognized immediately: the degree to which evil, at its most systematic, coexists with the absolutely mundane. In the final days of the war, Eva Braun made the one decision for which history has most consistently given her credit, though a credit may be a wrong word here. In April 1945, as Soviet forces closed on Berlin, Hitler ordered those around him to flee. Braun refused. She traveled to Berlin, descended into the Führerbunker, and made clear that she had no intention of leaving. On April 29, 1945, less than 40 hours before both their deaths, Hitler and Eva Braun were married in a brief civil ceremony in the bunker. The following day, she took cyanide. Hitler shot himself. Some claim he also bit on a cyanide pill at the same time. Their bodies were burned in the Reich Chancellery Garden, in accordance with Hitler's explicit instructions. Eva Braun was 33 years old. Historians have debated what to make of that final act ever since. Was it loyalty, devotion, A refusal to be captured, perhaps. A last assertion of agency by a woman who had spent 15 years in deliberate obscurity. Probably some combination of all of these. But it is worth noting that Brown did not spend her final hours expressing any regret, or horror, or any recorded ambivalence about the man that she had chosen or the regime that she had lived beside. Her letters from the bunker are those of a woman at peace with her decision. And that, too, tells us something. Eva Braun matters to history, not because she was powerful, but because she was close to the power, and because the long dismissal of her as a historical subject reveals something important about how we've sometimes told the story of the Third Reich. The tendency to concentrate evil in a single figure, to treat those around him as props or victims, perhaps, or irrelevances, flattens a history that was, in reality, populated by ordinary people making terrible choices. Brown was not a perpetrator in any direct sense, but she was not simply a bystander either. She occupied a position of unique intimacy at the center of the most destructive regime of the 20th century, and she chose, consistently for 15 years, to remain there. Understanding why she made that choice and what it cost her and what it enacted is not the same as excusing it, but it is, finally, history's job to ask the question. The History Brief. Today on the History News, we're traveling back tens of thousands of years, long before cities, writing, or even agriculture, to a time when early humans may already have been experimenting with something surprisingly sophisticated: geometry. Archaeologists studying ancient artifacts in southern Africa have recently been examining ostrich eggshell fragments that are roughly 60,000 years old. These shells weren't just food waste. Early humans hollowed them out and then used them as water containers, essentially creating portable canteens in a harsh, arid landscape. But what really caught researchers' attention was the decorations carved onto these shells. Across 112 fragments found at the sites in South Africa, scientists discovered intricate patterns: grids, parallel lines, and diamond shaped designs etched carefully into the surface. At first glance, they might look like simple decorations, but a new study suggests that they reveal something much deeper about how early humans thought. When researchers analyzed the patterns mathematically, they found that more than 80% of the designs follow consistent spatial rules. Many include parallel lines, right angles, and repeating motifs, structures that require careful planning rather than just random scratching. In other words, the people who made them were not just doodling. According to the researchers, the patterns suggest these early humans understood how to repeat shapes, rotate designs, and organize symbols into larger compositions. One scholar described the engravings as a kind of visual grammar, showing that the artists likely imagined a full pattern before carving it into the eggshell. This matters because this level of abstract thinking, planning shapes and patterns in advance, is considered a major milestone in human cognitive development. It's the kind of thinking that eventually leads to symbol systems, mathematics, and even writing. And the timing is striking. These carvings appear around the same period when modern humans began spreading out of Africa and across the globe, a time when new cognitive abilities may have helped our species adapt, cooperate, and innovate. So while these artifacts may look like simple decorative scratches, they could really represent something profound: evidence that humans were experimenting with structured, abstract designs tens of thousands of years earlier than we initially believed. A humble ostrich eggshell, it turns out, might hold clues not just about how our ancestors carried water, but about how they learned to think. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today and helping make this little show such a mighty success. If you are enjoying this show and would like to help with its production, you can always donate a few dollars at buymeacoffee.com or become a Patreon member to enjoy these episodes ad free. Both of those links can be found on our website at www.historyshortspodcast.com. I would also like to invite you all to check out our YouTube channel, where there's a few videos that are not part of the overall podcast. Have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you all again tomorrow.